So today on AY After Hours, we have Jim Schauer and James Cross from the podcast of Coffee with Jim and James. Guys, appreciate you coming in and joining us today. If you want to give a little bit of history as far as your background and that sort of thing, Jim, I'll let you go first.
Do it, Jim.
I'm shy. I'm timid.
Yeah.
I'm reserved. I don't know if I could. Okay. I've been in the gas industry for 20 some years. Everything from CenterPoint Energy to unregulated gas trading to LNG. I was the CEO of ThinkPet Energy for a few years. Held a couple roles here at Energy WorldNet. This is my fifth role in 3 years, believe it or not, if you include Coffee with Jim and James. I love the industry. I do know a few people in the industry. I've been known to go to conferences and see, if I don't see at least dozens of friends, I don't feel like I'm having a good time. And I always see dozens of friends. So that's me in a nutshell. I live in Florida too.
Florida. He used to be a Texan.
Yep. 10 years.
He got out as soon as he could. I'm just kidding. My name's James Cross. I have not been here 20 years. I got here as soon as I could, I swear. I was actually in technology before, healthcare and IT, Kelly. So I got here. I actually grew up in West Texas in the Permian Basin, so I was very conscious of the industries in which we serve, and just took me a long time to get back involved. I left my IT world behind and came to an IT company is what I realized. And I'm very happy to be a part of this group. I now serve as the Senior VP of Brand. For our company, that means that I'm over kind of the brand identity, the marketing, our events, our external. And then secondly, I'm also over human resources as of the last year. So again, I get to affect positive change within our culture from all sides. I'm really happy to do that and be kind of the voice for our people too. So the podcast, the wild part, just this past year has been the past year, 18 months, almost 2 years now coming up. It just was one of those kind of, I think we mentioned it when we were recording earlier today, a bar napkin moment, and we just kind of selfishly built something for ourselves to just be able to talk to each other, I think, and get paid at the same time.
To hang out.
And the fact that people wanted to watch it or even did, I think, was the impressive part. And
Paid?
so, yeah.
Paid?
Oh,
You didn't get the
it's in
memo,
It's in the
Jim.
mail.
Okay. I'm waiting.
So it's been an interesting ride. Really selfishly done, and then now it's turned into something that we're actually able to reach a ton of people every week, really.
Yeah, let me just jump in about that selfishly done. When COVID started, I would normally go to 20, 25 conferences a year and maybe do presentations or whatever and just interact with our clients and our prospects. James would also do a lot of traveling and such like that to a lot of conferences. He gives wonderful presentations. But when it was April of 2020 and James is like, we're not going to be traveling for a while. And I'm like, oh, no. This will be done by May, May of 2020. I'm like, we'll be fine. James is like, no, let's do this podcast. And it was very awkward at first, extremely awkward.
Super awkward.
And, oh my goodness. I mean, we were literally, I had a sheet on the screen. Welcome to Coffee
Question one.
Coffee with Jim and James. It was very peculiar, but with anything, it just becomes more comfortable over time, and it's we have fun doing it.
Well, I do want to mention I didn't mention this when I kind of gave you the general introduction, but congratulations! Just a few weeks ago, you guys won an award at SGA. I'll give us a little bit of background as far as that's concerned.
James, go ahead, man.
And it's one of those odd moments where you didn't really foresee this part, right? Or being on someone else's show, how silly that seems, to wake up and be like, what are you doing today, Dad? It's weird.
Yeah, I think knowing that you're part of an award-winning team of this podcast that you have there, and knowing that Doug and I are brand new to this whole thing, do you guys have any advice, like any do's or don'ts that really stand out to you? Like, oof, you know, you've been doing this for almost 2 years, and you look back at the beginning and go, wow, that was rough. Could you help us avoid some of that?
Run. I'm just kidding. James, go ahead.
Oh, you're going to make me go first again.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to go first every time. That's cool. Pick a good partner, number one. And I mean that for real, because that's basically my work wife, Jim, my work husband with Jim. I don't know how you put it. We spend a lot of time together, and it's funny because now, and it sounds like, you know, a lot of people are kind of going to this mode, but we record in batches if we can afford ourselves to, just so that we can keep this show going and still do our real jobs and still go out and travel and do this thing live. And so you end up spending a lot of time together at the beginning to get it off the ground. And then once we move to this, there's only real chunks to where we're in that mode. And so now we've started connecting again, not daily, but several times a week in the mornings, because we had gotten so used to that being there over and over and over. So picking a good partner, I think, is super important. The other is just looking at those ways that you can be sustainable. It's important to get out there and get started and take everybody and interview it and, you know, dig in, because it's just a lot of work. But then step back and go, okay, what does the next level of this look like? And I think we did a good job of just getting a product out there. We weren't as proud as of the first ones, but they were awesome, and people still watched them, and they allowed us to do the next one, and I don't know. I think there's something to be said about giving yourself a little grace in this process, and just knowing these first ones are awkward. They're awkward for everyone, and then you kind of find your sweet spot, and it rolls.
Let me just add on to that. I would say, from my perspective, it's to have fun and to keep it real. So for 20 years, a lot of people know me in the industry. They know what I'm like. I'm always joking around. I'm always having fun. I have a very serious current. It's like the Mississippi. It runs fast and deep, but on the surface, it looks all, you know, kind of mellow. And I keep that aspect in the podcast too, where I always start off with some little wacky story just to break the ice, because we want people to watch it and to say, like, oh, wow, Jim's making fun of himself. He must be feeling okay, because every time we see him at a conference from California to the Atlantic seaboard, you know, I am the same person. And if they see that on here, I can't say how many people reach out and say, hey, it was good to see you today. And I'm like, I didn't see you. They're like, well, I saw you on the podcast.
Yeah,
so you know, I'm like,
you're like, oh, you watched that?
Yeah. Wait, so that we have 4 viewers now, James, because we just picked up.
Yeah. We're committed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I think there's something to be said for being okay with things not being perfect. We joke because at the first episode, Doug does the closing, and he just murdered it. And we just kept going. And then the next episode, it was like, just leave it.
yeah.
Just leave it. It's funny. We're not going to pretend like we're.
The music and faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because, you know, people watch these podcasts and they're like, you have to be doing that on purpose as far as, you know, messing that part up. I was having a conversation with my brother who watched this, and he's like, do you do that on purpose? I'm like, no, I'm just not that smart. And so, you know, we just to your point, you know, have a lot of grace and just keep going with it. So it's always good. So, you know, how did you two get together as far as being on the podcast together?
I'll start this one off. So James and I became friends when I was CEO of ThinkPen Energy. James was in the VP role of brand marketing or whatever it was 5 years ago. And we got to become friends at a Texas Gas Association event. So we have a long-term friendship. Then I joined EWN, and, you know, our friendship was good. And then again, during COVID, for us to keep relevant, to keep out there, to give thought leadership, to give it back to our industries, we'll call that, you know, James, this was his mastermind. And it was him and his mentorship that helped. Yeah, it was. And it was his mentorship that helped me become comfortable with this, because honestly, I'm old school. So in February 2020, if somebody said, let's do a Zoom call, I would have been like, no, 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 no. Let's do what we normally do. We pick up the phone and we talk. And James brought me along, and I give all the credit in the world to James for having the mastermind behind it, and also our brand team that does the marketing, that does the graphics, that does, things like this, the coffee mugs over here. You said, I could almost be a weather guy. Look at this.
Yeah.
Mugs are, there's a Saskatchewan Screamer coming in, and it's going to hit an espresso and the Keurig machine.
We need to work on our background.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's it. I'll mute myself after that one.
We had a killer team. We have a killer team behind ours, and I know y'all do too. We also kind of went in with an abundance mentality too. I think helped us. There's enough out there. There's enough messages, enough things, and we had a team that helped did that. Jim and Jim was like a LinkedIn superstar or something when I saw him the first time. He had all this hair and had a whole thing going on.
I did.
It did. He was in a moment, and so I wanted to meet him in person. So we had connected on LinkedIn, and at that TGA event we got to meet. And one of the first things Jim said was like, "How'd you get here?" And I told him the story of how I'd left the company I was at before and came here, and he was like, "Man, that's really cool. That takes a lot." And so we kind of connected in that moment, and ever since, it just worked out. When he got the opportunity to join us at Energy World Net, I mean, I was already a champion. So when the podcast kind of came to be, we were just aligned right at the time. Jim has a knack of connecting with people. That's kind of why we're on this call right now. Sure. And honestly, I could pull it off. From a logistics standpoint, we were able to stand something up really fast, and then kind of build on that. So it's been cool working with Jim so close. We didn't work this close before, so
No.
It's been an interesting thing to learn, how to do that and do it successfully, award-winningly.
That's right.
Award-winning.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is that an adjective?
It is now. I know for us, in terms of why do this, we kind of talked about this earlier, our why is we care about the people in our industry. And so this is one way to help tell their stories. And something that I've learned in the 5 years transitioning from a more IT world into a manufacturing world is there are so many jobs that are undervalued, underappreciated. There's a lot of heroes over the last 2 years that had a huge spotlight on them, and rightfully so, well-deserved. But for me, the reason I want to do the podcast is to shine a light on maybe some heroes that go unnoticed in the gas, waterworks, plumbing, pump industry. And so when you set out to do a podcast, or any time in the last 2 years, have you said to each other, what do we really want to get across? What do we want people to walk away and go, oh, Jim and James, this is what I get out of having coffee with them?
James, give me your vision. I mean, it says it all. I mean,
we stay centered, because that was another thing. Going back, you said tips on really doing it is staying centered on whatever that cause is. And for us, it's really been about, if we can reach one person with a message, period, it doesn't matter. Our show kind of took on legs of its own through the weirdness of the last 18 months. And we found ourselves we did an educational series on 7 habits, and went through each effective habit, from Stephen Covey. We kicked off a mental health series because, like you said earlier, Kelly, there's some topics that maybe we don't talk a lot about in our industry, especially when it comes to our people. And the amount of traction and things that came from those, taking a platform that really was selfishly made and for fun, really turned into a chance to connect with people that we didn't expect. And so then we used that for good. And we got so much awesome feedback. Being out this past 6 to 8 weeks, really out in the industry heavy, we realized just how many people needed that and
Coffee
came up
guys.
and told us
Coffee
that.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
How many times have we heard that? And another thing that James, this is one of his taglines, but James will say all the time, give it all away, give it away, give it away. And, at first I'm like, what do you mean give it away? It's like thoughts, ideas, things to make us better, things to help the industry. James is a huge advocate and a huge champion for our industry as well. Let me rephrase that, for people first and foremost, and then our industry. It's the people that make up our industry. And James wants everybody, and so do I want everybody to be the best that they can be, to be safe, to be productive, to be reliable, all those. But when James says to me, give it all away, he hits me at my core. Like, how can I make somebody that I don't even know have a better day? And back to what he said, one person, one time, and if it changes their day, their month, their life, whatever it is for the better, then we've done our job. And that's the most gratifying thing that we have.
I love that. The give it all away is gonna stick with me for sure.
Give it all away. That's James Cross.
Service, that's like a service-minded approach to just things in general. Very cool.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a question about the industry, just out of general curiosity. You talk about the industry.
He's from the industry.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the industry, as far as what's changed since you started in it, Jim, what's the biggest thing you do? You look back and you say, you know what, that's different than what it was in the past.
Well, okay. So in the 20 years that I've been in the natural gas industry, I would say the biggest thing is when I started, it would be like, what's an example I can say this eloquently, where education and knowledge was passed down. Somebody would join the industry and they would work with somebody that might have been in the industry for 25 years and get that knowledge. And then over the 20 years, I've seen more and more OQs, qualifications, certifications, things to make us better. Do they take the place of that knowledge transfer? No, not in the least bit. But I think we've really progressed so much farther in the industry with trying to make sure we are the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities to be the best that we can be. And we've come a long way in that. And I think that, that's the biggest thing that scares me in the industry is the knowledge transfer, the people that the knowledge that they've had for 40 some years and are now retiring, and what they know in just a little tidbit of their brain, a newcomer into the industry would eat that up and love to have that. And so that's one of the things that I've seen that, we're starting to get better at that. We're starting to do a good job with really trying to capture things, trying to take the time, trying to understand them, document them, because we can't lose sight. I mean, people, and James and I were talking about this before, and I think all four of us were, that, let's have freedom to fail. We don't want anybody to fail in the industry because it could be a problem. So, if we could have people have the freedom to learn, or have the freedom to learn from somebody else's experiences, all the better. I mean, it's almost like with my kids or my grandkids. I want them to understand maybe the mistakes that I've made in my life, and not to, step in those same, so to speak, footsteps in the snow, so to speak. Did you like that? How I brought this?
I was scared where you were going to go with what they stepped in.
Come on
This
now.
is after hours, though.
That's right.
I'm sorry, that was a long tangent. James, take
I
it away.
will take it another direction because
Please.
I haven't been here that long. All right. So I've only been in the industry about 5-6 years. I think we kind of had a black swan event here with the pandemic and being forced into virtual and all that. And everybody would go, oh, yes, the pivot. If we hear pivot again this year, let's not talk about it. But more importantly, what I think it's done, which we were on the path for, is really, and I'm going to put the HR hat on and say, we've realized how important our people are. We always said people, 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 and we meant people, 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 like the one sitting in the chair doing the work. And now what we're really realizing, and we were forced to realize, is that people are tricky and they have a lot of variables. And we are engineers, and we have engineered every ounce of every possible piece of everything. That's why we have innovation departments, is they just churn
Yes.
all day long, try to figure out new ways to do it.
Yes.
But all of us have to manage people and lead people and work side by side with people. What we're realizing is that we really have to understand them, and having real discussions about mental health and having real discussions about how hard this is, remote and split and hybrid and all the terms you want to throw out there, is the people part, is we're not able to connect and do those things. So I think we're seeing a big movement around that, which is awesome for the people that are, going to be a part of this industry for a long time.
That's great.
Yeah. I think, AY being a long-standing family company in manufacturing, I would say the virtual world was probably not something that was near and dear to the company's heart, but there's been just an immense amount of flexibility and kind of meeting people where they're at with all of that, and kind of, adapting in a way that understands that not everyone is going to adapt as quickly or in the same way. So it's definitely a learning experience, but I think when you're at a company that does have a family mindset, then there's a patience that comes with that is required. So it's been an interesting ride for sure.
And AY spans 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. So, I mean, the AY McDonald family has been around for a long, family of company has been a long-term entity, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good.
one of our leaders always says, what does he always say, 165 plus year company trying not to act like it.
Yep.
We're old, but we're trying not to act.
165-year-old startup.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's an exciting thing. I will say, I didn't touch on this, for somebody at my generation and age, to see the younger generation going into the industry now with the innovation of being able to pop on this and do something that I didn't even know was possible, or something on the computer, or a new PowerPoint or Canva, I've learned is a really big thing, and other ways that we can bring messages. Shout out to Summer Schauer, my daughter, on that one, who's enlightened me. But anyways, it's fun watching, some of these things. I have no idea how that generation does it, but I am so enamored by it, and so it takes my breath away at times to see it.
How cool is this, that we have people joining our industry with teams and departments built around innovation, right? I mean, that in a time where, maybe 10 years ago, that never ever would have thought that would be how you're entering into, this industry. So I think that's really cool too.
That's great. Yep. Good. Thank you. Well, Jim Schauer and James Cross, we appreciate you stopping by and having conversation with us. And to everybody out there, I highly recommend you go to the podcast of Coffee with Jim and James. It is award winning, and so and rightfully so, I must add it. It is extremely entertaining, and we appreciate you guys taking the time to join us at AY After Hours, the non-award winning show right now. But you never know. If we keep going, I think we're gonna get. We might get there.
Set our goals high.
Yeah.
Come on, it's been our pleasure today. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all so much.
So if you guys out there have any suggestions as far as additional topics or anything to talk about on AY After Hours, feel free to email us at ayafterhours@aymcdonald.com. Go to aymcdonald.com or any of our socials, and we'll talk to you and see you later.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us on, folks.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too.